Like, when do I start taking money out of this? Like, when do I start making money from Amazon?
I guarantee anyone there's about $1,000 to $2,000 worth of stuff.
Stick with that type of thing, and inevitably, you're just not gonna make it in that world if that's the case.
So if you had your bankroll of, let's just say 5 to 10K to start, what would you do next?
Locally, you can build up a massive amount of capital like that. I know multiple people that have made over $5,000 a month doing that type of stuff.
You put in the work to
Yeah.
get in the circle. And I know that's not very popular right now, but that's how the circle works.
That is a foolproof way to be successful, and that's in any industry.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Side Hustle Experiment Podcast, episode 3. In this episode, we're going to talk about how you can make your first $10,000 selling on Amazon in 2024, and basically how to build capital for that, how we did it. We've both done over $7 million in sales on Amazon, so we know a little bit about how to kind of create money and make money on Amazon. And we kind of want to give you guys the blueprint. It's going to be different than kind of, I would say, well, when we talked about before the show, how we're going to present it, then kind of how it's presented. It's not just going to be like, oh, like go to Walmart and do this or that. Like it's going to be more, it's going to be different. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yep. So I think the most important part that you were talking about just right then is building the capital before, like making the 10K on Amazon. Because I think people have this conception that, okay, I'm going to start selling on Amazon, then I'm going to get to 10K profit a month or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's extremely difficult to do because the cash flow cycle of Amazon is extremely long, like 45 to 60 days, depending on like what you're doing. If you're not just straight up retail arbitrage FBM, and even then it's 20 days, 30 days some point. So the important part is having the capital before you get on there. And unless you're one of these guys that wants to get an Amex and run that up, and then you take out a loan to pay that off, that whole cycle. But what
Yeah.
you should be doing is building up as much capital as you can to then invest in Amazon and do it that way. I think a lot of people have it in the reverse, but I think that's the most important part, and that's kind of how me and you started. I'm presuming.
Yeah, so when I started, so it was very different. A lot of people always ask me, how did I scale so fast? It was basically because I started flipping furniture locally. I was basically getting a table for $50, selling it for $250, all cash, like making $200. And I was just doing this on the weekend while I had a full-time job. And by the end of the year, I had like a safe. I had like 10K profit in there. It was just like back and forth flipping tables, and it was quick turnaround. It's like you get the table, list it, and literally someone like grabs it. Like it
Mhm.
was absolutely crazy. Just how quickly they turn. And then it's also what I like about that, it's so low risk. Like I remember being afraid. It was the first thing I bought was a set of chairs. It was four dining room table chairs, like totally lied about it. Drove like 40 minutes to go get them, and they were $10. And I was like so afraid to like part with this $10 for some reason. And I don't know, I think it was the fear of like failure, like you're an idiot, why are you doing this? I at the time I didn't know anyone doing this, right? There was no one on social media doing this or that I knew of, or I didn't even think to do it. I was just like, oh, this furniture flipping thing is kind of crazy. I kind of is in that like scarcity mindset. I don't want to tell anyone about this. I'm gonna lose it. It just what was one of those things. And I think, in honesty, that's the easiest way to start. The best way to start, I like to tell people, is start with your house. I recently moved, like 5 months ago. The amount of stuff that we accumulated and had to get rid of, like I didn't even have time to sell it. Like it was more like we gave it away, we donated it. But there was just so much. I guarantee anyone there's about $1,000 to $2,000 worth of stuff you don't use. I have three Apple Watches like sitting on my desk right now that maybe have a cracked face, or but someone would be willing to fix that or like figure out what to do with it. Or I think you could sell broken stuff on eBay too, and probably people buy it, fix it, resell it, all sorts of stuff.
Yep. Oh, sorry, I thought I glitched out. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Well, how I got started was during COVID, so it was a little bit of different times, a little faster turnaround with my stuff. When you're buying weights for 30 bucks and selling them on there for like 70, it's pretty easy. But it's not like that's completely impossible today. I was just talking to somebody yesterday. He joins a lot of these groups like Bandar and these types of flipping groups. He found these Xbox Series X's. They were on sale for 350 at Walmart. He got like two or three, and then he matched prices on Target, on Best Buy, on all these places. Got like 20 Xboxes in, list them all on Facebook for 500 bucks or 450, and he's just printing 100 bucks, $150 profit over and over and over. He's made like more money doing that off of one single thing than off of Amazon. What doing the normal Amazon sourcing stuff. So I think that just joining some of those groups and trying to get some of those flips and turn your capital around, it's just a quick way to do it. It's a lot of grunt work. I hate doing that stuff because you have to
Same.
deal with all the Facebook buyers, you have to deal with just all these different things going on, but it is just very simple math. Buy it for 300, sell it for 500. There's not a lot of other stuff you have to do. You don't have to worry about returns. You just have to worry about not getting robbed and dealing with all the Facebook messages.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big parts for me too, is just the ease of it. You do it with your phone now. The Facebook interface, oh my God, it used to be I almost think you had to do it on desktop. I don't even know if you could do it on mobile when it first got started. But now, I mean, the ease of it is just so easy. There's a ton of people on it. My parents almost love buying stuff on it. Like stuff they don't even need. It's almost like a game for most people. Like, oh, I got this on Facebook Marketplace, or it's just that kind of stuff. And I think for most people, it's the most low risk because especially if it's stuff in your house, you could just post it if no one buys it, like that's fine. Or even you get $5 for it. It's just crazy to me that people I was the same way too. I thought, oh, it's not worth my time to list something for $10. And when you're just starting, that's ridiculous. Now,
Yeah.
is it worth me listing, a $10 item? Probably not. Especially if I only have one of them or don't have a bunch of stuff. If I have, $5,000 worth of Amazon returns, is that worth posting? Yeah, sure, because 5 grand worth of stuff. But I think you just get to that point. And number two, which I always like to tell people, is it's the best way to tell if you even like reselling or want to do it. If you don't like it on this level, if you don't get that high where you sell something, you buy something for 200 or 100 and that turns into two, three, $400, you're gonna waste a ton of time and money trying to sell on Amazon. Because if you don't like that initial hit and finding it, selling it, getting it listed, it is just not for you. And that's fine, but you want to find that out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think there's a lot of people that probably just don't have the whole reselling thing like in them. They don't get
Yeah.
excited by that type of thing. They can't stick with that type of thing. And inevitably, you're just not going to make it in that world if that's the case. A lot of the times, that's just how that goes. So, yeah, it's a great way to get a low risk kind of foot in the door for that type of stuff.
Yeah, so
Another
I
thing,
guess
oh, go
good.
ahead.
I was gonna say to get started, I would say just like kind of map out a plan. Maybe go around your house, get a box of stuff you don't want or don't use. A lot of the time, I'm like, oh, have I used this in the last year? When was the last time I even used it? And they'll just be like, gone. Pretend you're moving out of your house, and it's like, do you want to take this somewhere else? And that will get a lot of stuff in that box, and just start posting it. And I feel like people are just overwhelmed by the posting process for some reason. You're literally just imagine you're taking a picture and sending it to a friend and be like, "Do you want this?" It would be like, "Hey, I have this Apple Watch." So the title would be Apple Watch, whatever it is. Put your 3 or 4 pictures, pick a price, and just list it and see what happens. And then people are either gonna want it or don't want it or make you offers, and then you could decide what makes the most sense for you. Um, And then I think a big part of this, and I don't even know where I came up with the system, but I was just like, oh, if I sell this watch for $100 and make 50 on it, I would take 25 personally and then leave 25 in the business. I was like way poor back then, and was just kind of getting started and just had like a crap job. But if I would treat it as extra money and like roll that, don't take it out because unless you need it to live, I would just try to keep it separate. This way, when you're ready to make the move, and take it to Amazon or eBay or wherever else you want to sell, you'll have a nice lump sum there to kind of get started.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, that along with just selling the stuff in your house, like I said earlier, I would just go to WHOP.com, WHOP. It has a bunch of reselling groups. It has like all these
Mm,
different groups there. Look at the reselling ones, join a few of those that are low ticket. They aren't very expensive. Spend like $100, $150 a month on whatever amount of groups and just pay attention to all those groups. That's how I got my start with reselling. I don't think it's extremely talked about. Just be careful with what you're buying because a lot of that stuff can be trash and you don't want to get stuck with it. Because a lot of these group owners, if you ever get on Twitter and Instagram and you see them, they talk about our members bought, 50 grand of this or they're going to sell this much. Well, what happens a lot of times is say you buy 10 items for $100 a piece, and when you buy them, they're selling for 250. Well, you get them in, it drops down to 200. Maybe you sell a few of them for $100 profit, and then you get stuck with like five, six of them. That's a net loss. Like you lost money at the end of the day, especially if you can't move those again. So people think they're like, oh, I made all this money because I bought all these profitable items, but it's just on paper. You haven't sold the items yet. So make sure you're not buying large quantities of stuff that doesn't move and turn it around quickly and try to turn it around locally. You can build up a massive amount of capital like that. I know multiple people that have made over 5 grand a month doing that type of stuff. And if you hit a big play, a guy just told me that he bought two Christmas trees. They were like 30 some dollars a piece. He flipped them both for like $1,500 or something ridiculous like that. So made like $1,500. So that kind of stuff can just massively increase your bankroll instead of you having to rely on like outside methods or trying to churn your Amazon inventory over every 60 days or whatever it ends up being.
yeah, and I feel it's a low impact as well because the math is real simple. You don't have to worry about fees. It's just straight up what you paid for it, what you sell it for, and just kind of you get the difference or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that is kind of the key. So, and depending on your situation, how much stuff you have, or how much you're willing to buy, or getting used stuff like I did used furniture, that's a lot less capital intensive. And what I would do was when I started, I put up $100. I'm like, I'm not putting more money in. So it was a slow go for me. It was okay, I bought five different pieces of furniture, right? Like stupid little stuff, and then by the end it's like, all right, I have 150 now. Okay, great, let's buy some more inventory. And then before you know it, you have $1,000, $2,000. Then you can really like start rolling that. And you could
Mm-hmm.
do that easily in 30 days, 30 to 60 days. You could easily have like 3, 4 grand, I think, if you're just kind of doing these like quick little flips and really just putting in the work. And it does sound like a lot of work, but again, also like selling on Amazon is a lot of work, especially if you're just getting started. Like starting selling on Amazon versus going around your house or joining one of the groups you talked about and just finding stuff you could flip locally. It's literally you could do what Drew's saying in about 10 minutes to kind of set up an Amazon account and bank accounts and all this other stuff. And we're not saying that's not a great route, but I think you mainly want to test the validity. Like, do you like doing this before you kind of take it to another level?
Yeah, and there's even an argument to be made that you might even be more net profitable doing the stuff we're talking about rather than even running a large Amazon business because you're gonna like have
Sure.
way less stuff to deal with. It's like very simple. You like buy the product and you sell the product and get the cash. It's not you get a credit card to buy the product, to get it shipped to you, to get it shipped to a prep center, or to send it to Amazon, and to do all these different things. You just cut out so much of the middleman. It's just very simple buy it and sell it. And I've been doing that stuff since I was in high school. I bought fidget spinners, made like $2,000 my senior year of high school.
That's
Bought
funny.
shoes. I would buy used shoes on Facebook. So I would buy them like all around the country or mostly locally. And then I would get the shoes, clean them up, and then sell them on eBay or vice versa. I would buy the shoes off eBay, clean them up, and then
Mm,
sell them on Facebook. And that made me. I think I did $20,000 in revenue with just shoes in high school on eBay and like
wow.
StockX and all those things combined. So yeah, it's just if you want to put the extra little work into it, you're just kind of arbitraging whole the consumer base not being very aware on Facebook and that type of thing. Whether you're buying from them or you're selling to them, because they're usually going to price their goods low, and you can make some kind of deal and then sell on eBay or vice versa. Buy it on eBay, sell it to the Facebook people. There's just like unlimited opportunities there. And I think that the Amazon thing is just that to a larger scale, but there's just way more to worry about. It's very simple when you stick with the other stuff. And I had someone ask me very recently. A lot of this is the same type of guy that I'm talking about here, but he was like, "When do I start taking money out of this? Like, when do I start making money from Amazon?" And I'm like, "Man, I don't really know because I've paid myself through cash back, and I'll take money out when I need it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you're just gonna grow, grow, grow. So it's very difficult to take money out unless you get set up with an S corp and you start paying yourself. But when you're doing that local stuff, you can kind of just take money out when you need it because a lot of it's cash or a lot of it's just you're just depositing the money in your bank account, they're Venmoing you, whatever it is. So it's a little bit simpler of a process overall, in my opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. And yeah, it's just easier to track that kind of stuff. And yeah, I really like that model to get just your foot in the door, get started, and then then you could kind of look into Amazon and go from there. So
Yep.
if you had, let's just say, I don't know. I like the idea, and I think there's a lot less pressure. So if you have $500 to get started, you could do a lot of damage with that locally for sure. On Amazon, you'd be lucky to get like two or three ASINs with
Yeah.
that, and then just the time delay of getting it there, selling it, or whatever has to happen. You could just move that. You could make that three times over probably before you even get it like checked in and sold. Um, so if you had your bankroll of, let's just say 5 to 10K to start, what would you do next? So you're gonna open your Amazon account and all that kind of stuff. Is there a business model you would go after, or would you
Um.
suggest?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing, final thing on that previous, if anybody is very much intrigued on doing this, I would say to add into doing everything that we've said, document it all on YouTube. I gave John this idea earlier in the year. If you did the Sam Sulik, you guys can look him up. He's doing the bodybuilding stuff. He's exploded on YouTube. You do a Sam Sulik style content. You just talk for 45 minutes to an hour about your day. What are you doing? What are you buying? What are you selling? Because it's not like there's competition like Amazon. You're just selling it locally. You're not competing with other people. You talk about these different groups. You can even put affiliate links from the groups in your YouTube thing to even monetize further. I think that is such a massive idea. If you're like a young hustler and you don't have a lot of money, YouTube video every single day, every 2 days, and do that same thing. You're just going to build your bankroll because you're already going to be doing it, and then people are just going to want to follow your journey because you're trying to turn your $0 or $500 into a certain amount. But on the Amazon side of things, I would just do RA, like completely RA. And FBM if possible.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, like even 5 to 10 grand, it's just not much money when it comes to Amazon. Like you're just not gonna see what if you sell it for 30% net ROI. You spend 5 grand and it takes 45 days turnaround. You make $1,500 in 45 days. It's just not a lot of money. So you need to do RA and FBM ideally so you can turn the money around super fast. Because even if you're getting a 20% net ROI after everything and turning around every 15, 20 days, that's way better than you doing 30 to 40% ROI and turn it over every 45, 60 days. You're going to see it, you're going to feel it, you're going to get more feedback, so you're going to mess up less in the long term rather than you just buying a bunch of inventory and waiting and hoping it all goes well 60 days from now.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely, I like that. I actually didn't do any RA. I guess I kind of did because I did books from thrift stores, which is the same concept. You're going thrift store to thrift store trying to find, scanning everything, trying to find something profitable. RA probably would have been better, I guess, in that sense, because it was the same process. I just happened to get like into books because I saw a video about it. But yeah, I really like that idea where it's just kind of just quick. I think retail arbitrage is probably going to make a huge comeback in 2024. Everyone's going. I know people who are just absolutely crushing RA. I think RA is just a different beast. Like Walmart doesn't need to mark down stuff online. I mean, all that stuff's in a warehouse, and eventually they do. But when it's on a retail shelf and the new Legos are here, or the new iPhone, or the new whatever, it's like that stuff has to go. There's nowhere to put that. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to like put that in a Gaylord or on a pallet. I mean, I don't work there, I don't know, but there has to be a reason why they just clearance it out. Like, it just has to go. It just makes more sense for them to liquidate it and then move on and like make room for the next great thing. Um, So I do think that's a really great option to do. Um, and then yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would do art. I don't know. I'd probably want to do OA. I think it just really depends on your situation. So for me, I probably would have done OA over RA because I had a desk job and I was sitting at a computer all day. Like I was a
Mhm.
copywriter, so I would have had. Not that I'm saying it's like a great idea to like do your side business while you're at work, but I would have more opportunity than going RA and have to bank on these stores being open or going to them after work. I just kind of sit there and kind of like peruse for, or maybe just an hour over lunch, right? If you get an hour lunch break, you definitely source then. So I kind of probably like that idea. And I think where a lot of people too get caught up when they first start too is it's super overwhelming. And I learned this kind of when I hired a trainer. So his whole process was you didn't get anything up front. So he was basically like, hey, like you're getting one workout. I have about 30 different videos about eating healthy and supplements and all this stuff. And he's like, you'll get them within, I don't know, 30, 45 days. And it was like day one, okay, here's the workout. It's, oh, what else should I be doing? It just kept me more engaged. And then it was like day two, here's how to do the meal prep. Here, but if I got all of it at once, it'd just be super overwhelming. And I would say you want to just keep it as simple as possible. In my opinion, you should do all the prep yourself and just make it work with taxes. Whether you're in a tax-free state or not for whatever. I wouldn't get a prep center. I would get something like Selleramp, um, and Keepa. I'd probably just get those three. I feel like Inventory Labs is. I would get Sellerboard too. Sellerboard is only $20 a month, and you want to know what your numbers are. Inventory Labs is kind of pricey at $90. Obviously, it would save you a lot of time, but again, I feel like sometimes you're just trying to trust or try the proof of concept. Like, does this work? Does this not work? Do I like this? Do I not like this? Instead of going all crazy, you could be all in at what 30, $40 for that stuff and
Yep.
be able to do pretty much everything with those tools.
Yeah, I mean, my now that I'm thinking about this and hearing you say that, my honest opinion of what you should do if you have 10K, let's say it's not 10K that isn't like your last 10K that you're just investing in Amazon because you're trying to change your life. Let's say that you have a bunch of money, but you're like, I want to start this business with 10K. I would go all over Instagram and all over Twitter, and I would watch loads of content from all these
Mm,
different guys. And I would find someone that has some type of coaching or mentorship that doesn't have a bunch of people in it. So, someone that's very one on one, make sure you get one on one calls. I know this because I ran my stuff and I did 2 1-on-1 calls a week. It was completely idiotic. So, if you're on the other side of this, never offer
yeah,
2 1-on-1 calls, way
agreed.
too much time.
Definitely
But the
there.
people that got those, the people that stuck with it and weren't just like complete idiots, got so much value. Like a guy just now messaged me. He's at 40K profit this month, and it was the 17th when he sent me that. He started my mentorship at 25K in revenue, and he's at 40K profit this month. He'll probably do like 60 some K profit. Insane margins, like 20 some percent margin, because he booked 2 calls a week. He had them booked every single week, Tuesday and Thursday, same time. He would go ask me loads of questions. He took everything from my brain possible. And now that guy's just completely changed the trajectory of like any business he ever does. So I would spend whatever it is on some type of coach or whatever, and don't do a big program. Like, do not do that. Do one where you can kind of get the most bang for your buck out of someone. That's who you want to look for. That's who me and John looked for when we were doing our private label thing. And I'm sure if we were more adamant with sticking with it, that would have been
Yeah,
way more valuable than us paying like Kevin Pack or somebody or whatever, one of those guys. Like those guys have millions of people in their program. Like you're never going to see them. So focus on someone that you can actually talk to and just extract all the value. Ask him a ton of questions, bother them, do that because you paid them, so they owe you that, and you will get value from it. And it's worth it to spend half the money you have on it because that person's just
yeah,
going to tell you everything. Like and be like, hey, what else do I know? What else do I need to know? Teach me every single thing. Get the calls recorded. Watch the calls back. That is a foolproof way to be successful, and that's in any industry. It's not just Amazon. That's what I'm doing with the thing I'm doing now. I just paid somebody this morning $4,000. I'll probably end up paying him six if I need it. I'm gonna just listen to everything the dude says, go through the thing, and I'm sure I'm gonna be successful with it. Like these things are very valuable, especially if you get the one-on-one access to people.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm about to spend a bunch of money on coaching stuff or courses around probably buy a podcast one, a social like just different stuff and just knowing it. I think it's hard for people to wrap around because there's like been so much shade thrown at Amazon coaches. I mean, we were both Amazon coaches. Like I still do one-on-one with people. Um, and I felt like weird about it at first because it's a like, first of all, it's a for me, it's a lot of pressure on me. I feel like I like spent 3 4 years of my life, giving out free content, building value, and the last thing I want is people to be like, "Oh, he ripped me off. He doesn't know what he's talking about." So it's a really high for those of you. I feel a lot of people think, as a coach, you just get all this money and there's no pressure on you. Like all the pressure is on me. Like I want to over deliver. I want to make sure you get like value. And you also have to realize on the flip side of that, I'm giving it my all, and some people just aren't doing the work, and that weighs so much more, almost than the people who are getting the results, because it's just like, what did I do wrong? But there's only so much I could do. But I realized that when getting the trainer, it was just, hey, you have to take advantage of it. Like I'm at the gym, and I'm like, I put my phone up and be like, this feels wrong. Like, what am I doing wrong? He like sends back a thing. Oh, like your back is bending here. Like, don't do that. Hey, I'm at Texas Roadhouse, like what would be the best thing to eat right now? Like, tomorrow's weigh in, like, but I gotta go out for business or whatever I'm doing. What should I eat? Or supplements. Like this guy has I think he said 4 closets full of stuff. What do I get? The best ones, right? The ones I don't have 4 closets of stuff. He's like, these are the best ones I've tried. They're working for me, so I'm good with that, right? I'd have to spend 5 6 grand. Like supposedly some of this stuff's really nasty. I've never really luckily I've been fortunate not to take anything that's gross because I'm just taking what he's taking. Um but that saved me time. Like I've never taken supplements before, so it's just like dumb stuff. Like I'll give you, you're like more into this, but it was just like, oh, like tomorrow's cardio. Do I still do like the intro workout and the post workout drink? He's like, no.
No.
He's like only lift days, and I felt so dumb, but I was like, I don't know, like I've never done it before, so I thought it was a dumb question, but I was like, well, he said text me whenever he has a question. I've learned so much doing this, so I think it also takes a lot of I guess you got to be humble in the process because most people who want to do this stuff or make money on the side, usually from my experience, are kind of doing something else where they're successful at. Right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't like my job, but I was successful. Like I got promoted, everyone liked working with me. I was a very good copywriter. Like there's no doubt about that. But, I had ambition to like move up in the company. And then, when I got my first taste of reselling, I had ambition to grow that. So a lot of the times when you do have that ambition, you just sometimes you're like, oh, I'm a good copywriter. Like I'm gonna be stupid. He's gonna think I'm dumb. But you also have to realize that other coach, most likely, if you have the right coach, like if I called him right now, he'd stay on the phone like 2 hours because he loves it. He's like, oh, like get this or don't do that. Like, oh, I just got this new rope or this new that or blah blah. And it's just like talking to me with Amazon. I could talk for hours about Amazon or like me and Drew get on a Zoom. We talk for 3 hours about digital marketing or this or that. It's just like time flies. And it's not like, oh man, like I wasted 3 hours or Drew. It's like, oh, like I have so many ideas, like I can't wait to do this or that. So I think that is like one of the big things. If you're gonna pay for like a mentorship, definitely do it and kind of do it. I have mixed feelings about this because how I got the trainer, I was like, "Oh, I'm so sick of, I keep saying, I'm gonna do it and not, I'm gonna eat healthy and this and that, and I just never do it. And it was literally Saturday night, and I just like ate like pizza or something. I'm like, I'm so sick of that. I literally just like, because I was following him on Instagram because he goes to my gym locally. I was like, I'm booking a call like right now. Because I was like, I knew if I didn't book it, I probably wouldn't do it the next morning. And then I booked it for the next day. And then I was like, I remember waking up like, oh, you're so stupid. Like, why'd you book this call? Like, kind of thing. But I did. And like, I talked to him and I was like, I don't know, this guy gets me. I kind of like him. He had like a plan mapped out, and I'm like, all right, like let's do this. And then I paid for, he had like a 3 and a 6 month, and I just went for the 6 month. So I think sometimes 3 months. So I did 75 hard, and I'm not saying 75 hard to not work, but I just kind of went backwards after that. It was like, oh, I did this for 75 days, like it's time to celebrate it. And then like slowly but surely slip back. I think you could do pretty much anything for 90 days. I almost think it's that after the 90 days where it gets kind of like wishy-washy, whether you stick with something or not, because it's like, oh, I hit this big milestone, but I'm thinking if I could stick with this for 6 months, that'd probably be the longest almost like fitness thing I've done. um and I think you also have to break it down. I feel a lot of people, like what I just said, 6 months, are, oh man, like 6 months, that's crazy. Like if you're working with like either one of us and you get 2 coaching calls, that's 12 calls. It's 12 hours. Over six, that's nothing. Like
Yeah.
six, the 12 call, like that's not to devalue the service, but I'm saying like in general, like when you talk to one of us for an hour, like we're so like on it, like you don't need more than that. But it's not 6 months, it's like an hour of your time, and if you just apply what we say in the hour, you'd be like so much better off. But you just have to realize it's a longer term investment.
Yeah. And the whole like we're promoting these coaching things, but like we're not. I just got a call a few nights ago. Like somebody had booked a coaching application call. I don't even know how he got it because I thought I deleted the link. And I got on the phone with him and I'm like, dude, I'll be honest, I just don't even want to do this anymore. He was probably fully prepared to pay me as well. And I'm just like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Join this group. I told him to join RBOPS. I was like, I might have something next year that I come out with, but I'm done coaching. I don't want to do that type of thing. From what you were saying, just all the pressure that gets put on you with it, like you do make money obviously, but it's just a lot of pressure that gets put on when you see like people fail. And see, I thought that I was going to do it, and the reason I even started is because I talked to all these guys behind the scenes, and I'm like one of the most knowledgeable people about sourcing and finding products in this entire like industry. And then I started teaching people and they just couldn't understand what I was talking about, and I'm like, wow, I'm just watching people fail. And then I realized eventually, a lot of people don't know this either, the failure rate in these coaching programs is extremely high no matter what. So that this is something that I don't think I've heard anyone talk about. The average is the square root of the program. So if there's
I
9 people in the
yeah.
program, 3 people win. If there's 25 people in your program, 5 people will probably succeed. So that's 20 losers out of 25. That's just the reality of it. Luckily, mine's way higher than that. I think my percentages is actually around like 65, 66%, which is pretty crazy. But that's because I worked myself to death to make sure everybody would succeed and still had failures. Like that's just the reality of it. So that that's just part of the running the coaching program, but I'm still super high on joining them. Like I
Yeah.
would recommend that for over anything. You just need to pay for that kind of thing. A lot of people will say they're scams or whatever, and there's like there's an element to that maybe it's a bit of a selling you the dream. I think that's just kind of America's thing. They just sell you the
Yeah.
dream. They kind of lie to you. That's like
Well,
everything
remote,
you
like you gotta
buy.
sell the vacation. You don't sell
Yeah,
like sitting on the plane, going through TSA, and like
yeah.
rightfully so. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, but that's just like that's the reality of it. And I would still invest into a lot of that stuff. There's just no better investment you can make a lot of the times because it might seem like a lot. Like, let's say somebody has a $5,000 program. That's a lot of money to pay up front or in a payment plan or whatever. But your potential of 10xing, of 20xing that money is very high. No matter what, as long if you get to talk to that person. Like I've generated over $4 or $5 million on Amazon, and you pay me whatever to learn everything in my brain, all mistakes I've ever made. It's just a no brainer. And I used to hate on the programs too when I first got on Twitter, that kind of thing. But you just learn that that's like an Amazon seller thing. That's just like a bunch of weird
Yeah.
guys on the internet that just don't understand the internet. I realize that it's just a
It,
bunch of
now
old
that you
guys.
say that, super interesting because like there really is no, from what I've known, like I've always been into personal development, and no one's like, I don't think anyone's really hated on Tony Robbins. Like,
No,
of
oh,
course there's some, but I've never taken any of his stuff. But it's not like if he was an Amazon guru, he'd be like getting his ass kicked every day on Twitter, most
wouldn't it be
likely.
weird if I was like, "Oh, you paid for a personal trainer? What an idiot!" It's like dude, what do you mean? That's like a huge industry. That like duh.
True.
If you can't stick to your diet, you can't stick to your training, you have a bunch of questions, what else are you gonna do? Just like that's an obvious to me that like a personal trainer is the best way to go. And look at all you've learned from the personal trainer. But for some reason in the Amazon space, it's all weird. And I thought that too, but it really is just a bunch of old weird guys that just don't I don't think they fully understand how the internet works. I really think that. I don't think it's out of I think it's just
Right.
like just not stupidity, but ignorance of just like all the other industries on the internet. There are coaches, there are courses, there are programs. That's just normally how it goes. It's just an education industry. Like think about you pay for college, you go to high school, you grew
True.
up in school. Obviously, education extends, and it's going to extend off that. But not to say there's not scammy stuff that goes on or whatever, but the Amazon stuff gets a lot of hate for that, and I just truly don't understand it because a lot of people, like guys like Ty Lopez and those guys, made a lot of their money off info, and they'll talk about just that's what all you should do is not don't even sell on Amazon, just teach people how to do it or something like that because it's higher margin to do that. It's just it's just a weird thing that I guess people just don't talk about really, and I don't understand it. I really don't. I just think it's out of ignorance, but I could be wrong there too. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you just want to look for, I guess, might as well go here. If you're looking for a coach, I think you just want to look for someone who is getting people results. Like you'll see it shared on Instagram, and I know we talked about the failure rate could be like really high for this stuff, but it's just like anything else. Like
Yeah, that's
people
normal.
fail, or only so many people can get promoted in a job, right? Like maybe eventually, but most of the people don't want to do what it takes to be the VP or the CEO. They just kind of want to go there, get their pay raise every year, or whatever the case may be, and that's what they want to do, and like that's fine. Um, I think too, you want to see that. This could be a controversial one. I feel like you want to see them active, or at least have seen like numbers, or they're making shipments, or just something that like shows that they're in the game.
Yep.
Um, that you could measure that all sorts of different ways. Um, like I guess a good one would be like if they're at networking events and stuff like that. Obviously, they're in the game, they're doing stuff, they're knowledgeable. If they have a YouTube channel, like I have over 300 or 400 videos. Like obviously, I'm doing something, right? I'm just not doing that for fun, to like fool people, right? It's just
Mhm.
not how it is. And then I feel like you want to go into it like we kind of just talked about it. Like with my trainer, I knew really right off the bat. I keep saying my trainer, I don't want people to get turned off about this because it's the same exact thing. Instead of reselling, it's fitness. All their principles are the same, right? It's all the same thing. It doesn't matter. And I think sometimes people, me included, you just can't wrap your head around. Like, sometimes you just think you're different and you're not. It's you just have to be able to apply. Okay, this is a coach for fitness. This is a coach for Amazon. Like it's all the same. Like you might have this like little different circumstance or whatever. Like, oh, there are like no WalMarts by me. Well, maybe there are Targets. Maybe there's Ross. Maybe there's something by you. Like there's
Mhm.
something. Or you go online. Or you do Facebook market. Like there's all sorts of stuff. But I think a lot of people kind of could get caught up in that. It's like, oh, well, easy for John and Drew to say. Easy for them to do $5 million. They, live here, they live there, or they do this, or, they're on podcasts with the biggest people. It's like, where do you think we started? Zero.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
zero.
looked at
I
John
didn't
as
even know
just
Drew until a year ago. Like,
I thought you were a celebrity till about a year ago. I was like, John's like one of these big. Now I'm on a podcast with like, yeah, you all like it can change so much in the course of just not even a lot of time. You have to keep putting the work in. And one thing huge that you just said there with the personal training stuff, this is something I've kind of learned through all the things I've learned in the past few months. Is a lot of people that are buying programs, whether it is Amazon or personal training, it's kind of it is like not metaphorically the same thing. It's like literally the same thing. Like they're paying for the thing because they have a need or a want in life. I'll give a perfect example of this. Let's say it's a guy and he just can't pick up any chicks no matter what. And he doesn't know what the reason that is. So the guy's here and he has no chicks and the chicks are here. So he's trying to get there. And something in the middle is like stopping him from getting these chicks. And this could be Amazon FBA because it gives him money, or it could be personal training because it makes him look better, or it could be a dating coach because he doesn't know how to talk to women. All these things are actually replaceable here. Like it's not even that it needs one thing. Now there's if you're already an Amazon seller and you're going to specifically get, coach for Amazon, that's different. But a lot of times if you're just brand new to this space, you can basically pay for anything. If you're the type of personality, it's probably going to work out for you. And if you're the other type of personality, almost nothing's going to work out for you. It's like that's kind of just the way it goes because a lot of the times it's just like a pain point in the middle that you're trying to get to some X goal at the end, and you can replace any of that and you'd be fine with it, or you wouldn't be. Either maybe your thing at the end is just not important enough for you to stick with anything in the middle. So that's like a large point with those coaching programs and stuff too. It's like no matter what the industry is, it's all interchangeable. And if you have the right person talking to you and the different marketing from all these different people, it's like you can be convinced that anything else could be your problem. You could have a complete money problem, and I could convince you that you just don't know how to talk to people. Just
Yeah.
like the way that sales and marketing and these type of messaging goes. And that's so much sauce right there. If people can extract that message down, you can make loads of money just by what I just said.
I think the other thing, one of the biggest things I've noticed with successful, even people I've coached who have been successful, you're almost buying. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example because it's not us, but someone like Hermosi, like he launched a coaching program. I would definitely buy it. I don't even know what it would be about, but you have to realize 10 years from now, you're not going to have that opportunity. Like
Mhm.
you'd have to pay him like $10 million to get in the room with him. But at this point in time, like it's just like Tony Robbins like 20 years ago. Like he might be willing to come on this podcast or willing to do certain stuff, but now he's so far like successful and removed. And I think a lot of the times, a lot of people see, oh, blah blah blah. Like, why does John answer their questions and not mine, or how did they get on the podcast or whatever? Most of the time, it's because they did what I said. And I'm like, yeah, I want to give you more advice. Like, you're actually going to do it? Like, there's so many people in the DMs. I love Instagram so much because it keeps, like, the conversation. Like, in email, if you keep getting emails, it's not connected. And it'll just
Mhm.
be like, oh, how do I get started? Okay, here's, like, 5 videos on YouTube. Watch that, and then let me know what questions you have. 2 months later, oh, hey, you know, where can I get a prep center? I was like, you guys, did you watch the video? Like, I know right away, just by the questions that are being asked, it wasn't like, oh, I'm getting order cancels, or hey, like it's just so obvious that they didn't do the work, and that's like, I don't want to help you. Like, I sent you 3 or 4 hours of content I did for free. That would get you started, and then you come back and you're just like, hey, what about a prep center? It's like, you haven't even bought anything.
There's
If
a
you knew
perfect.
anything or watched any of my content, you know I'm not telling you a prep center because it's just horror stories, number one. Number two, that's just not how it works. If Drew asked me for one, I would send him one, but it's just not how it works until like you're kind of like in the circle, and that's not to like say to poo poo on anything like that. It's just like you have to put in the work to
Yeah.
get in the circle. And I know that's not very popular right now, but that's how the circle works.
The thing about like listening and then not repeating questions or not not actually watching the stuff really when you're talking to anybody that really makes people extremely angry, and I've noticed it because I fell victim to it. And then I saw someone that was in my coaching program earlier this year, so I had someone helping me, so he would get on a call with someone and then I would get on the call with someone, and we would give them 2 calls a week, so they got 2 a week with both of us. And there was something that the guy kept asking the other person working with me just over and over. And I'm like, I'm not watching that. I'm not on the call with him or whatever. And he knows me so well that he's like, I know Drew has already told you this. And he was like, I actually know it so much that let's go watch back your other call with him. And I bet he told you this answer. And he pulled it up live on their call, our call, and was like, yeah, see, he just told you that there. Did you not listen to him? Like, you have the ability to rewatch this, all this different stuff. But that's like such a frustrating thing. If you not, I try to take in every little detail of anything anybody tells me. Like I just work with someone, I paid him 10 grand to work with him. And everything he told me, I would try to just memorize it. And I would be like, I could never ask him the same question again. And I like caught myself doing it a few times. And I'm like, I'm such an idiot. I'm probably pissing this guy off so much. But That's just like you just listen. Just listen to people implement the stuff. If it doesn't work, then ask them. But usually if they're telling
Yeah.
you something, it works. Like
I was gonna say
99.
that, like, oh, if you're doing it, or there's like some things that there was this one like exercise again, I just could not get it, and I was like, I just
What was it?
don't
What was it?
understand this. It was like one with like dumbbells. It was a split. It was just so complicated, and I was just like, I just don't like. Can you like send another video or whatever? And like eventually he did, but it's like I'm trying it. Like I sent him videos of me doing it, so it wasn't just like, oh,
What do I do?
yeah,
Yeah.
what do I do? It's like this is what I'm trying. Like the weights are falling off. Like it was just like almost something where you bounce on a bench and you had the barbell on your. It was just like a mess, and I was just like, and he's just like, I'll make a video for you, but do this other thing for now. But it's like I tried, it wasn't working. He could see I put in the effort, but then he was also happy to help. It wasn't just like, can you send me another workout? It was like, no, like this is where I'm struggling with. Like, what am I doing wrong? And I think that too, that's like if you could just show the work that you're
Hmm.
doing, I mean, you're definitely going to get help, like for sure. And there's
Yeah.
other people too that are in the most of the time in coaching or like have learnings that they could share with you that's actually even more helpful because they're kind of at the same like starting mark you are at. And I just think in general, you just have to be humble. Like when I was coaching, I learned so much from the students, right? Because I'm giving them these basic things. They're telling me, it's like, oh, have you ever heard of this store? Have you heard of this? Have you heard of this brand? I'm like, no, no, no. It looks legit. Everything's checking out. And it's just like, well, I didn't like think about that. And I think everyone just has like thinks differently. Um, and you just have to be able to kind of like apply that to your
Hmm.
business. And I think that's kind of where probably a lot of people fall off when it comes to coaching. It just can't be super spoon fed to you. Like it's spoon fed, but it can't be like if you can't eat carrots, you have to figure out that you could eat corn. Right? You know what I mean? Like you just have to be able to figure it out. Like, oh, I can't eat well, what's another vegetable you could eat? Like just eat that vegetable. Same thing, you know what I mean? And I think that's where like a lot of people get in trouble and it's just like, well, these other people do this and it's like no, like this whole business, now that I think about this, like I feel like this probably wasn't what we were talking about, but like we're just in this like kind of role now. I think this whole business really selling on Amazon is just overcoming obstacles and pivoting. Like, it has
Hmm.
nothing to do with like yeah, you're buying and selling stuff, but that's legit what you're doing. Oh, I got an order canceled. Okay, like what do I do about that? Like, oh, this happened, or I can't sell this, or I got bad feedback. You're just constantly taking like a step forward and maybe like half a step back, and then a step forward, half a step back. And eventually you're going through the path. And I think that's kind of why like mentorship is definitely important. And obviously, we don't coach anymore. So
Yeah. So, yeah. There's like,
we're
well,
not
it's not like
going
people
to,
just,
like
yeah.
maybe in the future we'll do something together, but as of right now, we're not. But it's just like, as we said, we've spent $5,000, $10,000 on other things outside of Amazon, to get help. And if I had to start at, yeah, I would get a program. Honestly,
It, yeah, it's just such a no-brainer. Like it really is. If you, I heard two things on this. Hormozy talks about this all the time. Like the only thing that's like, what's it costing you for making $1 million a year?
yeah,
Like 950 grand. So that's a good analogy of that. And Hormozy doesn't even sell anything. So it's like for us saying this message, Hormozy saying it's like. We're not giving you a sales letter here. This is just the reality of the situation. And what I actually do, I've spent like $25,000 on coaching in the last year and a half because it works. And then there's another thing. There's a step by step process as long as you're not in a complete scam of a program of just you do X, you do X, you do X. And if you stick to this process, you will get X result no matter what. You just stick with it and realize too what you're saying that it's like 95% mental. It's just your ability to not freak out. Like I'll watch people implode. I've watched so many. I could talk about all the coaching stuff I've done, and I will do this one day. It's basically just a psychology masterclass of these different personality traits, these different kind of like IQ levels. I can just tell different things about different people. And I've watched people just implode because they just cannot handle the mentality of everything. But really, if you just stick to it. You do this, do this, do this. You will win no matter what. It's just all mental and just do not give up and do not freak out. Just keep doing things and try to overcome obstacles, like he said, and you'll
Yeah,
win at any.
like what we were talking about before the call, I was like, this last week has been absolutely insane for me working out. Like I'm just hitting all these new PRs. And it was like the 6 weeks prior was like just a big slog. Like, is this working? Now every week, like weight is going down. I'm able to lift heavier. And I was just like, well, because you've been doing it for like the last 8 weeks. And on the surface, it looked like it wasn't working. My body didn't look as much different as it does now. And I think it just keeps like slogging along. It's like, well, eventually, if you just keep going to the gym, or eventually, if you keep walking 10,000 steps, like eventually you're going to like figure out, why am I not losing weight? Oh, well, maybe you're eating wrong, or maybe you're doing this, or maybe you're doing that, or you're not finding anything. That is like probably the most, I can't find anything. I can't find any profitable products. They're out there. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of products like on different websites. Yeah, is it stuff harder to find today? Probably, but people are finding it. People are, they're doing it. And I think it's definitely easier to be like, oh, I didn't find anything yesterday. I probably won't find anything today. And I like to tell people, just shoot for one thing. I always used
Yep.
to do that when I was struggling with sourcing. It's like, come on, just find one thing. There has to be one thing out there that I could find, and that usually able to push me through and be able to find the next thing. Instead of being like, oh, I have to spend. That was my biggest problem at first. Oh, I gotta spend 2 grand today. It's like,
Yeah, that's the thing. That's
like
like what
that
a
was the
lot of these.
that screwed me up so much. It's like, just find one thing. We'll
That,
worry about spending 2 grand later. Let's find one thing. It's like, all right, great, spend $200. All right, great. Let's find something else. Oh, cool. Just spend 500. All right, we're at 700, and just kind of breaking that down instead of just being like, shit, I'm still $1,800 away. I'm still 50. That's like the wrong way to look at it. You got to be like, hey, let me just pick up one, and it's almost like going to the casino in a way. It's like you'll run hot and cold. Like I'm not a big gambler or whatever, but there are just
Mhm.
some days where I could spend $10,000, $20,000, and other days where I'm only spending like 500, and it just, but eventually it just like bounces out.
Yep. A lot of the that's an interesting point to bring up too. The spin goal thing. I always hear people talk about that. That's just like not the way it works. I don't know why that's such a talked about thing. I get it hypothetically, it's perfect. You spend this much a day and then you spit
Yeah.
this much out. It's just all perfect, and that's not the way that works. You're not going to spend the exact amount each day to do that type of thing. You're gonna, like you said, you might go 3 days in a row and not find anything, and then spend like 10K in a day. That's largely how it works. It's not
Yeah.
every single day you spend X amount and then you get X at the end. That's not how that works. It's a very windy type of road. And that's how all business works. I don't know why people think. I think the marketing of Amazon, like a lot of the guru type of talk, just makes it overly simple to what it is. It's not
Yeah.
as like simple as what it makes it out to be. It's just like any other business in terms of inputs and outputs. It's windy. It's not all straightforward, just like no business is. Every time you solve a problem, another problem's going to come up. It just never stops. No problems ever stop. It's just the way business works, especially Amazon, because it's all so vague and ambiguous.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's why, that's kind of like the rule of thumb. Whatever you spend, like if you times that by two, that'll be your sales. It's because it's just really hard to wrap your head around the numbers without like kind of just a rule of thumb with that.
Mhm.
That does seem to be pretty true, but margins are all over the place. Kind of when you kind of go by that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Something else I was going to talk about. Oh yeah, there's a guy. You were talking about the just putting in the work every day and
Yeah.
that type of thing. There's a guy called Nick Cosman. Called Nick. His name is Nick Cosman, and he does something called growth consulting, and it's
Okay.
where he kind of takes over the sales and the marketing for these SaaS companies and blows them up like this. And I've been like on a huge binge of this guy because he's really, to me, a genius. I'd love to talk to this dude one day, but he has a program that is, I think it's 15K. and you get on his website, and it's just like you submit your name, your like LinkedIn, your Twitter, and your last name, whatever it is. And he talks about his program is you will write copy, you'll write like a sales letter, and if you don't know what that is, that's either like a VSL, which you're writing a script for someone on a camera like this talking, or you're writing just a email sales letter or a website copy or whatever it is to try to get people to convert to buy the product. Well, he says like the program is you write a sales letter and you send it to him, and then he tells you what's wrong with it, and then you write another one, and then you submit it to the whatever company you're working with, and then you just keep doing that, and there's just like nothing else. That you just do the sales letter, you send it to the company, you see how it converts, you send it to him, he critiques the sales letter, and then it just all goes over, and it's just such a simple process. And it's like just keep writing the sales letter over and over, and you will get good at copywriting, and you will make sales, and you will help this company, and it's just like a no-brainer over and over. And it's just a funny concept to be. That could be how you run like an Amazon program. Is you just say you do X method, and then you send me what you find, and if it's bad, then I tell you it's bad, and if it's good, I'll say it's good. And that's kind of how I run my stuff too. I'm like, send me 40 ASINs a week, and we'll review them on a call, and that's how it'll go every time. And that was a pretty good metric at the beginning. I had more people successful when I had that metric in place. It was 40 ASINs a week. You send me 20 that are 8A or 20 that are keep a product finder or whatever it is. I'll judge him. We'll go from there. And that's kind of how he like runs his stuff too. And I think that is a simple way to kind of get there. It's just you just put the work in. I'll tell you if it sucks or I'll tell you if it's good, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, because I think that's the best way to learn. Because I was actually, I don't know, someone found one of those coaching links and booked a call, and I was like, "Ugh." And I was doing it, and I was like, you know what? Why don't you like show me like three or four you found today? And we went through them, and it was like, oh, boom, boom, boom. Like, here's no, I wouldn't buy that because of this. I wouldn't do this because of that. Oh, that's a good one because of this. And that's so much easier to like wrap your head around because I don't know, a lot of stuff is different, and there's just a lot of this. I don't know. There's just so many different situations that you just can't wrap your head around
Yeah.
when
You
it
don't know
comes
what you don't know.
to like if does it sell or like review like just higher level stuff that's hard to I don't know contextualize without like seeing it, and it's not always easy for like a coach to find an example of that just out of the blue and just kind of show you. But once you could show, and then it also forces you to do the work. I think people's initial reaction to that, and I always laugh, is just like, oh, so we're gonna pay you and send you leads, and then yeah, you're gonna buy all the leads. And someone once said to me, "It's like, oh, so I'm basically like your VA." I'm
Yeah.
like, nah, like not even close. It's like, how do you expect to like what do you think? Like I'm gonna help you. You're gonna ask me a bunch of questions just like this, and then that's gonna help you, or do you think if you actually did the work and I checked it,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
Like
we must have the
you're
same.
almost doing like a division problem. It's just like I don't know, 15 divided by 3 is 5, and it's like let me see your work. Like I know what the answer is. I don't have to look at your work, but like seeing how you think and are come to that conclusion would help me help you much more
Yeah,
than
that's
I'm not buying your shit. Like it's just not because no offense, like 90% of it's not going to be good,
yeah.
and that's just how you start. Like that's how it is, and that's totally fine. Like that's the best way to start.
Yeah, and that's just like a really how do I say this nicely?
Well, it's not like a principle.
Yeah,
Like back in the day, that's how it worked. Like you were an apprentice. Like my
yeah,
dad was like an apprentice to like one of the best friend chefs. And like he did all the dirty work. He like showed up early, stayed late. I know that's like such a foreign concept right now. I'm not saying that you have to be my apprentice or anything like that, but it's like it's how you learn.
well, yeah. What if you? Well, if that was, it's just a such a. It's just really just like a non-intellectual way to look at things. Of like, well, he's gonna take my leads, or it's like, well, dude, what about when you went to school? If school was if that's how it worked, then why wouldn't the teacher just read to you all day and then you just learn everything? Why is there tests? Why is there quizzes? Like, if that is such a, it's just a low level of like intellect to look at type of things. Like, I want as much feedback as possible. If I just gave you everything, it's not possible for you to learn. Like that's just
Yeah.
not the way it works. Or if there was a, if you went and went through a shift, like you're saying, or like why wouldn't? You think he's just going to go, why don't you just make all the things and give them to me? And now I know. Then no, you have to make it and then feedback. That's just how the whole world works. But yeah, it's such a, that I've had people say that to me too. And I'm like, what do you mean? How are you, how do I know how good you are if you don't send me what you're finding? That it's not possible. And you paid me enough to trust me. You think I'm going to steal your stuff? Yeah, like you said, I don't want your shit. Like most of the time it sucks. And if it's good, then there's enough of it, then yeah, we can buy it together and no one else can have it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I have one guy that he was like, he'll send me stuff now and he's like not even in the program, but he still talks to me and he's like, will you help me clear these out? And I'm like, man, I would. I just don't really feel like buying them. But he's like, yeah, well, there's only this many left. I need you to get them so no one else gets them. And I'm like, maybe. But I haven't been buying this stuff. But usually there's enough for everybody to go around. But I'm not even going to buy it anyways. Like, that's just not the way it works.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest holes too in the coaching. So I've done it both ways and kind of like shied away from kind of like, oh, send me the ASINs in a sense because of like there was a couple feedback like that. I'm like, oh, maybe that's good. But then the opposite happens. Like you don't source. Like I don't know what you're doing. You're like, oh, I
Yeah.
sourced like two hours a day. It's like, well, to be honest, that's great. And it's like saying, oh, I went to the gym for 2 hours a day. Well, if I sat on the turf and like just texted Drew for 2 hours or actually lifted the weights and did the treadmill and did all this other stuff, like that's a big difference, you know? And I always tell people like grab a timer or something and actually time like how long you're sourcing. So you'll be shocked. It's not as long as you think. For sure.
Now that we're talking about this, I haven't even really thought about it for a while.
Like I have one
The
right
best,
here. It's like it's so helpful because like you're looking at it, you're like, I haven't found anything. It's like it's been 5 minutes. Like what do you
yeah.
expect? Like oh, it's only 10 minutes, and it's like and you just stared at the timer for like 2 minutes. So now we're down to about eight.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense now that I'm thinking about this. I should have just done this with every person I ever coached. Just like send me this amount of ASINs, and then we'll go over them, and then you like tell me what you saw. That's the smartest way to do that type of thing. I guess I stopped doing it too because the feedback of people being like, "Well, what if you?" Now I just realized that's just stupid. I should have just shut that down and said, "No, that's how we're gonna do it." Because the same with like the thing I was saying about the Cosman guy. It's like, well, why would I send you my letter? What if you send it to the company? It's like, dude, he doesn't want to do that. That's not the point. Why would you even pay someone that you don't trust enough to do that? That's like a crazy thing, anyways. That's like a lack of ability on your side to think that someone's going to steal from you and you pay them. What? That's a complete counteract of what you're doing there. Like
If I
that's my
actually did coaching again, I would so do it that way, and that'd be
yeah,
the
me
only.
too.
Cause I used to have an offering. It was like source with me, and no one ever took me up on it. And it was like I think it was I don't know like $250 for 2 hours. We were literally just source together, and no one took me up on it. I was like, that's so weird. Like why? Like you don't think I would like pay to source with anyone really? Because like it's not,
Yeah,
and it was like you get all the leads. Like I'm not touching anything. I'm just basically gonna watch you source and critique it, and you could have all the leads we find or whatever. And I think yeah, if I had to do it again, because I do think now that I'm thinking about it, that eliminates
everything.
everything, right?
It
Because like
really does.
now you're not worrying about spend goal because you're not buying anything yet, so it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if it costs it that. Like we're just looking at ASINs here. Doesn't matter. So yeah,
Man,
think
that's a
if I would
genius.
do that again, I'd be like, send me the ASINs, um, because then it's like so much easier. Because then I can be like, yeah, don't buy this. Like you're gonna get an IP alert, or don't do this, or don't do that, and it'd just be so much easier. And I think what's the biggest thing for me is it makes you put
Do the
in
work.
the work,
Yeah,
right? Like it's you just have
accountability.
when I went to the gym today, there's 10 different exercises I had to do and check off. It's not like, oh, like just go to the gym, right? It's like, hey, we need 40 ASINs. Whether that takes you 2 hours or 40 hours, I don't care. We need 40.
Yep,
And
I
then
think
you're
that's
not
a
going
good.
to do the 40, then it's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'd be like, where are the ASINs? And you're like, oh, well, I'm having trouble finding them. I think that is one of my favorite. Like, yeah, maybe I will do this in the new year. But I think like that because I think a lot of the times it cuts down on, it makes you ask them questions. Like,
Yeah,
in this coaching call, I was just like, she's like, oh, I'm having trouble sourcing. I was like, well, what are you doing? And it was just like, well, I'm on all these leads lists. I'm like, okay, like a red flag number one, like we're gonna drop all of those. Or it's all my listings are tanking. It's like, well, how do you source? Well, I'm buying everything from leads list. Problem number one, right? Like, instead of just being like, oh, I'm having trouble sourcing, I'm like, okay, like, go do this or reverse or do keep a product finder. Is like, what are you doing? This then I could walk you through, right? If you're like, oh, I'm using keep a product finder, blah blah blah. But oh, have you tried this filter? Have you tried that filter? Have you clicked this box? Like, it just makes it for a much easier conversation. And I think a lot of that gets. That's probably why there's so much failure in it, because it's frustrating when you first start.
Yep.
It's just like, oh, that's actually such a good idea now, because you could actually do the
We just
research,
provided so much
not
value.
even like buy anything, and like you could have a whole education, and you could literally have a list of ASINs that you could buy. Like if you just kind of built a list, I don't know. Someone's
Yeah,
probably gonna
I
rip
wish I would have. I wish I would have like thought about that more now that I'm thinking about this because I did. I cut that the first few months because of what you said, all the feedback that you get, the negative feedback.
And
But
I don't want people being like, "Oh, he's stealing my leads." Like that's the
yeah,
last thing I need.
yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I'm thinking about it too. I recently did a program to where you would post a certain type of content thing, and then the person would review the content and tell you this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, and it's like that was a very easy way to automatically improve. And it's like, well, what sucked about this, or why is this? Where do I need to improve here? And it's just constant feedback, accountability type of thing. Yeah, I'm actually maybe a lot of programs do that. I don't know. I haven't joined any Amazon ones specifically, but I did that at the beginning. I didn't do it at the end, but that's a very smart thing to do. I feel like 40 ASINs a week too is not that hard. Should be pretty easy, especially when a lot of them are going to be wrong. There's one guy. Actually, I'll shout him out. Dr. FBA on Twitter. His name is Hamza. He joined my program. One of the first people to join, and he was like kind of frustrated because he was sending me these ASINs and they were all bad. Like he would be like 0 for 40 on a lot of this stuff. And he's like, dude, I don't understand. You're not teaching me whatever it is. And this was like I guess 9 months ago almost at this point. And by the way, this month he's at like 170K. The guy's like killing it.
Wow.
But and one day I just went over. I said, "Okay, we're going over every single one of these. And I'm going to tell you what's wrong with every one of them." Like something clicked right in the middle of him, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like this." And for the rest of the time, I probably went over 30 more aces with him since that day. Because after that, he just didn't have many questions. He would send stuff that he was like, I'm pretty sure this is good. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, it's amazing, dude. He's like, yeah, then buy them with me. I'm like, I don't like, okay, fine. Like it just, well, sometimes it just takes a ton of reps and then you just understand like the one moment. Like a lot of the like making content online from the reels or the TikToks, you might go through so much stuff and then you eventually get to the point where you realize it's just all about the first 5 seconds. Like it's all about the
Yeah.
title, it's all about the hook, it's all about the thumbnail. That's just like kind of what it is. And it just takes you a long time to really have that click for you. And I guess that's probably a lot of the way it is with like sourcing stuff like that as
I
well.
think that's the nicer part about content, though. I forgot who was saying this. Maybe it's Garrett. Yeah, I was listening to an interview. Like for content, you know right away. We post a reel on the podcast page, and we're texting. We're like, "Oh man, this thing is going, or this thing's not going," and you just know it's like, "All right, like we thought this was good, but obviously, like Instagram did not, or the people who saw it, and just how it is." And sometimes there's nothing else we could do with it. Other times it's like, yeah, that was kind of boring or that was stupid or whatever. But with Amazon, the feedback loop's a little longer. But I also think too, like another counter to that, so you gotta send me a list of 40 ASINs. It's like, or like, why don't you go buy those 40 and lose money on every single one? And who are you gonna blame? Me,
Yeah.
because I was your coach. And it's just like no, like that's not how it works. It's like totally subjective. It's like, oh, like I went to the gym and tried to bench 500 pounds. He'd be like, I didn't tell you to bench five. I told you to do a bench press. You know what I mean? You just have to like, I don't know.
We this is so funny. This whole thing started with how can you build capital to make 10K a month on Amazon? Okay, moral of the story as
Yeah.
we give you this advice. If you aren't making money on Amazon, find 50 to 100 ASINs per week and then pay someone that is good at Amazon to review those ASINs and just ask them that. Maybe you can create your own little coaching dynamic. Find somebody you like and you think that you know what they're talking about, and then say, hey, can I send you X amount per week and you video review them? I'll pay you this amount of money, and then you will learn a ton. So there you
Yeah,
go.
and I feel like the biggest argument to have is like, oh, they're gonna know my store, they're gonna know that.
Who
If
cares?
you're paying the right person, they don't give a shit. Like they're
No, they
not gonna
don't.
go after your store, they're not gonna go after you. Like I feel like that's like a big thing. Like your store is empty. If you're getting
Yeah.
started, your store is empty. Like there's nothing to do. Like it's just I don't know. I feel like that's just not a thing. If you're, you know, and plus, for the most part, if I've like looked, I pretty much know everyone's store front by this point. Just a lot of times people send them to me like, "Oh, can
Yeah.
you believe it's such and such a store?" I'm like,
Yep.
kinda, but that's a story for another day. But just like looking through that stuff, everyone has pretty much the same stuff.
Yeah.
I would
It's
say
just about
80% of it is the same brands, the same type, the same brands that are like kind of sometimes issue IP alerts. It just really depends on the season. It's just the same stuff over and over. Maybe it's different flavors or this and that, but for the most part, it's kind of just the same.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think maybe I'll start saying that. You send me $2 per ASIN, and I'll just review them for you on video. Because I mean, I think I
Dude,
text.
that's only 80 bucks.
Yeah, not bad at all. But I could probably do it in like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, probably. Because a lot of them are going to be so bad that they're like not even.
It depends though on yeah. If I don't know, it'd take a while to go over 40 though.
I was doing them in like 40 minutes when I was doing calls. It
Oh
was
yeah,
in a.
it's like yeah. If you just go quick, yeah. If you could pull up, if you have a Keepa link or yeah, the Eason link.
What'll happen a lot of times when somebody's at the beginning and they're finding ACE, what I noticed is they'll send lots of the same type of thing. So if I notice it's the same
Uh,
style of product or where they sourced it from, I'm like, okay, we can wipe off these seven because they all fall under the same thing you learned on this one. Like there was a specific scenario that I think everyone I've ever coached has asked me about, and I was like, this is bad. This I call this X, whatever it was. Actually, maybe somebody can figure this out. It's called a staircase, and I'm like, I don't like the staircase, so don't source the stuff that has
oh
it.
yeah, it's just no good.
Yeah, so it's like
Staircase
after
has a deep fall.
yeah,
Eventually,
if it's a
you break
staircase,
your leg on the staircase. Eventually,
yeah. So I'd say that I'm like, if you see a staircase, just never again. So that wipes out like 10, and then you just never find that one again. And there's just like little patterns because someone that a guy that I want to have him on here sometime. He is the guy I was talking about earlier that is like at 40, 50K profit this month. He'll make a ton. And he talks about how like all the Keepa charts and all the analyzing these ACEs is just a ton of like pattern recognition and you're just
yeah,
memorizing little things. And if you have now it takes like a lot. Some people just literally don't have the brain power to do this, so it takes more work. But if you have a high, pattern recognition skill and you can do that stuff, you should be able to see a Keepa chart and barely even look at it and know exactly what that Keepa chart is. And you can group
yeah,
them into little boxes and stuff like that. But not everybody can do that type of thing. That's just literally you're just born with that. But yeah, that's like a large part of it. Is the faster you can learn that stuff and the faster you can categorize different patterns and different charts in your brain.
yeah. And I think once you kind of have it down, you just go by brand, and like you were saying, just like oh, on an apparel listing, this is usually what the Keepa is showing. Like when it shows this, like it's most likely going to drop, but that might not be the case for something in grocery or beauty.
Yep.
It just takes a while to kind of learn that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, too, like this is probably going to be very unpopular. It's a crapshoot. It's a total crapshoot. I've been on some Keep It charts that look amazing. There's been some Keep It charts we've been on together, and it just
Yep.
falls off a cliff because it gets on a leads list, or I don't know, maybe we missed something or whatever. It's just it is what it is, and you just gotta test by and just kind of learn, like you're saying, these patterns. And some of that stuff it just comes from experience or talking to someone who's like done this before, and just having someone be like, yeah, I remember when I first started, I hired someone, and I was just like, oh yeah, I thought I was like such a hot shot because I was in books. I'm like, oh, I have all this capital saved up. I'm like, oh, like I want to map out a plan to do 1 million this year. And they were like nice enough not to like laugh in my face. Like I knew not I was just a bookseller, and they were just like, you could do that. It's not likely. Um, but would you? Why don't I just like help you get started? I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Little did I know that like 20K was nothing, in the grand scheme of things. Like I don't know, maybe I think I was in that camp where I was like, because for books, it did mean that if you spend 20K on books, geez, you could really run it up like on sales because it's the total opposite. I didn't realize. Yeah, coming from books, I was like, why do people have so many cash flow issues? Like, I don't understand. And then when I started doing OI, I was like, oh, okay, like I totally get it now. The stuff's more expensive, the margins are lower, but obviously it's a little bit more scalable.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's a lot of it is unfortunate that some of the Amazon stuff is just completely out of your control. Like I know a lot of guys like to say like all you're doing is reading data, and I get that part. I agree with that. That like you're just it's data, but it's a little bit of it's out of your control because you're only competing on one thing when you're sourcing on Amazon, and that's price. You're not competing on marketing. You're not competing on anything else. There's nothing you can do to influence that except for the how much you buy it for. And if someone jumps on the listing with a bunch of fakes, they obviously have it for less price than you. If they find a supplier that gives it to them for half the price you did, there's nothing you can do about that. There's just certain things that are completely out of your control. If it gets put on a leads list, then you just have a bunch of people that don't really understand margin and they need their money back for their leads list or their credit cards. So they have to tank it because the only thing you worry about is the price. So yeah, some of it is just out of your control. And if you end up getting on listings and you're like, well, I thought this was perfect and now it's not, sometimes it's just out of your control. Like look at the offer count. That almost tells all the story.
Yeah.
Or all you need to look at is the buy box seller and the offer count. If the offer count is spiked up, something bad's happened. Somebody's gave you your stuff away on a leads list or whatever. And if there's someone on the buy box and it's just a huge Chinese name and they have 5,000 in stock, you're probably screwed there too. That happens a lot. Amazon doesn't really help you there. It's just a fake seller that gets on and just scams a bunch of people on there. And there's nothing you can really do about it. Or you get one of these big companies on that wholesale companies that just get all these products for nothing and they undercut the price. And you're like, well, I paid for that with that price. How are they selling it for that? It's just how it works. They get better deals than you. And like I said, you're only competing on price. So there's not much you can do there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I do still think Amazon is by far one of the easiest ways that in the next year to make 10 grand profit easily.
But yeah, it's just, yeah. What do you want to close with?
Uh, yeah, I mean, do you have anything else?
No, I think we just went over a bunch. If someone listens to all that, that's one that you can rewatch. There's lots of sauce in
Yeah,
there.
there's a ton of that. Bottom line is it really just comes down to being consistent, I think. Putting in the work, getting help, seeking help. Um, yeah, and just kind of knowing. I think I'll say this for closing in terms I know this sounds like a big pitch, even though we don't offer coaching, so just keep that in mind, everyone. Before we
Don't
get killed. Um, but I feel like that is one under. You always just have to look at things as an investment. Like if you don't think it's worth to pay, and you don't have to pay a couple $1,000. There's like $400 or $500 courses, 200, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you almost don't feel like it's worth the while to spend that, then maybe this isn't like kind of the opportunity for you. Because nothing's easy. You could always figure it out yourself, and try that route. But if you kind of want to do it quicker, and I feel like if you're working a 9 to 5 or something and you're short on time, like the last thing you want to do is spend that time that you're short on just kind of researching and doing all this other stuff. Even most people would do a consulting call for like 200, $300, probably less than that. Um, but like even you could just spend that to just be like, hey, this is what I have. What do you think my next move should be? And just follow what that person says. You'd be 10 times ahead of where you would be if you started on your own.
Yep. And another thing, if you've got this far and you're listening, you're like, well, don't message and say, well, who should I pay? I'm not going to recommend anyone because I think it's largely dependent on who you are. So the people that have signed up for my stuff in February, we still get on calls today. Like they'll just book ones randomly through the week and it's not even like consulting. They just talk to me about life, that type of thing, because they paid for me because they related to my personality and they thought I was competent with Amazon. You need to find someone that you're competent with. If you are a 38-year-old dude, I probably wouldn't pay a 19-year-old that is driving around a Lambo or whatever. Like, don't that's not the personality. You want to find someone like you, or like what that you relate to, that type of thing, so you can have more of a relationship with them, and then that's just going to make them more invested in your success. Like, if you talk to me every week, I'm going to be way more invested into you being successful than if you're just some random person that I'm just churning in the wheel, which a lot of these programs are. So make sure that you relate to the person that you're talking to, and don't ask me for any recommendations because I will not recommend anyone in this
Same.
space. Now,
And
if
if
you
you're
if you want
going
like
into it, I feel like a really good point here is like if you think this person's a scam or what they're doing, like that's not the right person for you. That's like a tall tale sign. If you're going into something being like, oh, I think this is BS or this or that, like it's not going to work for you. So if you're not finding that opportunity, definitely keep looking because there's tons of people out there. Um, but
And
yeah,
another thing, this is a huge pro tip because I did this when I first started. I had a very low price for my program, and the reason I even started it is because I had so many DMs, people saying, "Do you do coaching? Do you do mentorship?" And then I'm like, "Well, I don't want to charge a lot, and I'm going to provide a bunch of value because that's the best way to do it." Well, if you can find someone that had the mindset of me when I started, of they would love the extra money and they really want to help you, and you can kind of negotiate with them to say, hey, how about I pay you this for this amount of time? They don't have an offer, so they don't have a program they promote. It's just you can kind of ask them what they want. That's probably going to get you way more value because they're probably going to
true.
only be working with you, and then you're going to develop a relationship with them, whatever it is, and you might be able to get that for like 2 or 3 grand, which is very cheap in the long run compared to like a lot of these programs. Like, if somebody wanted to work with me right now, I'd probably charge 10K just because I really don't want to do it. So you'd have to really pay me a lot, and like it'd just be a lot of money. So I'll work with somebody that's small, that's really hungry, that's really in the game, and just be like, hey, can I pay you this amount? And you just mentor me for the next like 3 months or whatever. Because you can probably work out a pretty good deal with people. It doesn't have to be you go through a sales process and all this stuff. Just message some random dude, like somebody that you relate to, somebody that you like, you're a fan of them or whatever it is, and go that way. That's like a huge hack instead of just getting in a big funnel and then going that way.
Yeah, last key tip I would say is when you do get DM or you DM someone, always ask to pay. Most of the time they won't charge you. If
Mhm.
you're like, hey, can we get on a free call? Like, I'm not saying this might come out the wrong way. Usually those free calls that I've done, all are terrible. And that's
Yeah.
just, like they're just not serious. Or someone's like, hey, like, do you do coaching or do you consulting or whatever? I'd like to book a call. Those people, you just know they're serious and they're about to like take action. And it will just set you apart. And I know a ton of people, like some of the bigger sellers who have smaller sellers who sent them that DM. I'm not saying this is going to happen. They just took a call with them for free.
Yeah. A lot
They
of times,
felt
yeah.
like, oh, I watched your YouTube. I did this. I did that. I started this. Do you have consulting? I'm stuck here. I was like, oh, what's up, man? Like, how's it going? Yeah, let's hop on a call.
Yep. But that won't happen every time, but that will
Yeah,
happen.
true.
It will inevitably, if you do that enough, like people are just gonna want to help you if they can recognize that you're, you know, don't ask me because I won't, but John might blow him up.
With that being said, we'll close out the show. Let us know what you think in the comments. Please like, subscribe, tag us on Instagram, take a video of this. We will share it, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.